Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We're on to our fourth session of the day, and today we have someone who fascinates me, has fascinated me for a long, long time. His work is just amazing, and I'm sure everybody who's here knows and has heard of Ugo because he truly combines what I believe of the art and armor, sort of like the theme of this conference. The name of this session, I named it one to sort of stroke his ego a little bit, but also because and I would call it the new Negroli, because in the history of armoring, there have been armorers who can move metal to create true pieces of art, wearable, functional, protective art. And Ugo has definitely become one of those. His work is completely astounding. So, but I'm not gonna talk about his work that much. I'm gonna let him talk about his work, and he can tell us all about it. So, Ugo, thank you so much for joining us today. It is so wonderful to have you here.
Hi, let me tell you about me. Right. So, no, this is fun. I mean, I've never done one of these, so I'm a little bit kind of like looking around, seeing what to do on the screen. But you guide, I follow.
All right. So, what what happened to make you decide that this is what you wanted, this is what you were going to
What
do? What
happened to
calling? What happened to you? No, what?
you? Who did that honestly, as far back as I can remember, my parents said that. I mean, I got pneumonia when I was 9 because I decided to take a window apart next to my crib, and I almost died. And my dad says that I had these fingernails that were like screwdrivers, and he had a doorknob, because back in the 70s they had the crystal doorknobs. They had a screw
Yep.
side. Apparently I'd reach up, unscrew them, and they'd disappear, and I would make things out of them, because they were diamonds. And so ever since I was a kid, my parents tell me stories of I would just grab things and repurpose them. The first work of art I remember, because we had to write a paper on it, was the Pietà, Michelangelo's Pietà.
Hmm.
And my aunt had a miniature sculpture of it on her desk, and she was a nurse, so I'd reach up and grab her bone models and her, invisible man or whatever they were, which is like a clear plastic thing with the bones and the veins
Yeah,
and all that.
yeah.
So I was always surrounded by tactile things. And then living in South America, as you saw my bio, I grew up in a 16th century, pre-16th century, pre-Columbian city, Quito, Ecuador. And to me, that was just, I was surrounded by wooden sculptures and arts. And I just did it. That there's not one specific moment that I was like, I want to be an artist. No, I just was, which drove them nuts. But, you know, yeah.
When did you start crafting armor?
I was 21. Before that, I sculpted. I grew up sculpting. I grew up drawing and all that stuff. But working metal was, I turned 21 or 20-ish, and I was in a bookstore, and I was looking at medieval stuff because that's what I loved. And I had no idea. And this lady just kind of walks over and she's like, "Oh, you like that stuff?" And I was like, "Oh, great, weird older lady." And she's like, "Would you like to come to a party?" And I was like, "Oh dear, this is gonna get weird." And ends up it was an SCA party. I show up to this thing with my then very young ex-wife, and we show up totally like, what's going on? And we see people beating the crap out of each other, swords and armor, which is basically, it wasn't quite Freon, but they
Oh,
were like big buckets with grills on them, and I remember at first going, ew, what is that? What? No, because I was already an artist. I was already working at a comic art company, and worked part-time at a comic book store. I was surrounded by art, and made my own costumes. So of course I show up in my costumes because they said show up in medieval clothes. No idea. I showed up looking like something out of a Conan the Barbarian movie. And my ex-wife showed up in some kind of weird fur bikini or something. And yeah, we started going in, and then I wanted to fight. And I'd wear the suit of armor that we called pennants, right? Because
I
it
think we've
would,
all worn pennants. Yeah.
would cut you it would just, I had some scars down here and between my legs from the things,
Yep.
snapping between the legs. And I was like, that's it. And I remember my first suit of armor. I built it, and I wish I could find the picture. It's somewhere in Oregon. Um, is this weird? Because of course, Kurgan, I love Kurgan. Musculata, articulated musculata thing that just looked like roadkill. And I built that. Believe it or not, my very first armory was my bedroom,
Hmm.
and it was a forging hammer somebody let me borrow. So it had a swage on the back and just a square roundy kind of thing on the front, and a ball peen hammer and a mattress. I did it on my bed. It was, and cotton, I had Q-tips out of my ears. Back then, I don't know why, I do remember the Dixie Chicks were playing on the radio for some reason. And I'm just like hammering. And of course, the whole bed is moving. There's no concentration of anything. There's no raising, it's sinking. I was 21 years old, and I was like, bash metal, and somehow it worked. So that was my very first armor. I was 21 and did it with what I had. And after that, all my tools fit in the milk crate, and the milk crate was my chair. And I would hold this little vise between my feet. It was crazy, to think that I continued. So that was the very first building armor.
So what you're saying is the party did get weird.
Party got weird, and it just started the whole thing. So I was 21, and that was basically the story of my first armor. Had a spun dome helmet, all that stuff. Ugh, it was horrible.
Must have rung like a bell.
I still have it somewhere.
But then you've definitely moved on from there. I think the last armor I saw you in was the one that has like eyes.
Yeah.
Eyes all over it.
I was going to move it over here, but it's too heavy.
Oh, yeah.
Forgive the mess. Oh, wait. Is it that way? Wait, no, wrong way. Hold on. How's this thing work? Where is it? There it is. It is right over there. Yeah, right over there.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. I was going to move it up, but it just, the whole thing is awkwardly placed. Oops. Hold on. I pushed something wrong here. Light there. All right.
Now, you said you did this yourself and you really started yourself. Was there anybody you looked to during this time?
Remember, I wasn't brought up in the society or in any medieval or in any scholarly way. All I knew was Terry English and Conan and the movies, right? So I got to meet Terry English shortly after, when I was 21, at a Comic-Con that I worked at. Hung out with him, talked with him, and eventually worked on a movie with him, very, very short. Him and the designer, and I completely forgot the name of Conan, who I also worked with at one point, were my biggest influences, apart from obviously Boris Vallejo, the artists.
Yeah.
But as far as armor, and that's the thing. I happen to build armor, but I'm an artist who happens to build armor. So I didn't have the passion and the upbringing and the access like we do now with a push of a button and in our phones. And thankfully, in a weird way, thankfully now people know me, and I could walk into a museum, which I've done just to see if it could happen. And I'm like, hi, I'm Ugo. And they're like, hey, look at our stuff. And I'm like, oh, it's good to be me. But the reality is I'm just this artist, goofy guy who picked up a chisel one day and realized, oh, this is like sculpting leather. This is my first time doing repoussé. I went to college and I have a degree in fashion, believe it or not, because my second ex-wife, let me tell you about my ex-wives. Each one has a story. My second ex-wife was a vet, or is a vet. And I was 24, divorced, barely graduated high school, sword fighting. That's all I did. I had the muscles and the long hair, and it was very sexy. But woo, my ex-wife, 24, veterinarian, set, right? I'm like, I have to do something. So I went back to college and I got a degree in fashion. Got the degree in fashion and was building armor at the same time. And my mother grew up in the fashion industry, by the way. My mother decided to take me to New York to Fashion Week. During Fashion Week, which I did kicking and screaming until I realized, wait, the Met. I went and I hung out at the Met as much as I could. My mom wanted to take me all these showrooms and fashion shows and all that. And I did a few of those. And I was like, I'm going to be at the Met. And I got to meet Robert Carroll, who was this curator at the time back in 96, 97. Oh, 97, 98. And he was this little dwarf of a man, just like, imagine Mac, but on steroids, looking like Gimli, right? Huge hands, meat hooks for hands. And I just brought some pictures with me. And I was like, can I talk to the curator? And they're like, who are you? But for some reason, he took pity on me and showed up. And I was standing next to the Negroli Burgonet with the Medusa.
Yep.
And he shows up and he's wearing a lab coat and he's like this dwarf giant of a man. And he just starts talking to me and I'm showing him pictures. And somebody says, if you take pictures, get rid of anything with rattan. They will not take you seriously. This is just, remember the 90s.
Yep.
So I removed everything I could except for one. And I completely forgot. And he's like, oh, this is cool. This is cool. This is cool. And he just stops and he looks at me and he's like, are you a reenactor in the SCA? And I'm like, we all start somewhere and I'm trying to quit. And he just kind of smiles, which is a lie. He just smiles, grabs his keys and goes, follow me. And takes me through this other department and opens a wall up behind a painting or something. And there's a door. And we go downstairs and he takes me into the downstairs of the Met. And that was amazing. And that really inspired me. He really, just with those minutes, kind of like sometimes when you sit with Mac and he just talks and all of a sudden your level goes up. He doesn't show you a thing. He just talks. And the way he delivered his information was something that made me hungry and filled me with such, I don't know, this hunger, this desire to learn. And I remember there was this one side room and it was like a weird morgue. There were suits of armor that we've never seen probably, covered in body bags. And you could see the silhouettes with just these bags and halberds on the walls and all this stuff. And I start walking like, oh, like Gollum, right? Like he doesn't even look up. He's like, this way. And we keep going. And he shows me all these tools, all these things that Tachot used to use that, I saw some other stuff that they were going to clean up. And I had a chance to, for the first time in my life, grab a real piece of armor. This is 28 years old, So anyways, I'm sorry. I told you I go off on tangents.
No. That's a wonderful story. It's that connection to it all and learning about, that first like true spark. I mean, I know you said you were an artist before and it's always been there and you're always doing everything, but that first real spark of being able to hold, something real and see it and view it and have that experience.
It's what I'm remembering more now. It was just really wonderful because the thing is, that's, I think, the first time I was really interested in repoussé. And that's before I ever did it. So on this one trip to New York, a few things happened. And one of them was getting to meet Robert Carroll. And we're looking at Negroli stuff. And he's telling me, oh, these things are like constellation maps on the inside. Because I'm like, how do you do it so you don't poke through? Because to me, the prestige is no breaking through. And he's like, oh, these things are like star maps. You hold it up and you could see constellations. I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, that's partially age. That's partially just who cares? They were not brought up in the Industrial Revolution era where everything has to be milled and perfect. So at one point I just look at him and I'm like, how do you do hair? Because that was my thing. Hair and greaves. Hair and greaves were like the two mysteries in my life. And he just looks at me and he's like, if you can figure out, I'll give you a job. So I take off. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, I go with my mom to another place and we go to this incredible fabric store. Findings and leather and millinery and what's it called? Bullion, gold, like Napoleonic stuff, right? And I'm just like going, oh my God, I want to make Napoleonic clothes because I'm really into that. The Duelist is one of my favorites. And 27-year-old me standing there and this gorgeous tall woman comes next to me and I'm like, and my mom, this tiny woman, she's next to me and we're just looking at stuff. And the woman who's at one point literally just rubs up against me, looks like at a bar across the thing to the person sitting there at the counter and goes, do you know anybody who can do suits of armor and who can make me a breastplate for a Broadway show or off-Broadway show? And my mom just goes right into my rib cage. And I'm like, "Gah." And seriously, it was when I was like, Alma, you say.
So,
And she's like, I need what's that?
did you make her the armor for the show?
That was the very first time I ever, it was for an off-Broadway show. I did a suit of armor for Neptune, which is somewhere in my Facebooks. And she wanted a breastplate with a fish
Hmm.
and some swirly things and all this stuff. And I was like, basically, it was like that scene in Ghostbusters. You know, if they ask if you're God, you say yes.
Yeah.
Can you do this? And I was like, yes, with a question mark at the end. And I got the job. And I figured out, I'm like, how do I do this? And the thing is, I didn't know repose. I didn't know how it worked.
Hmm.
I did it on stakes. I did it from the outside,
Hmm.
and it worked, but my hands were killing. I remember I used to bleed all the time. And that started me, that horrible breastplate started me on the path.
Hmm.
And it was on this one trip, meet Robert Carroll, uh, talk museum stuff and hair and Negroli stuff, get offered a job, and I was very lucky. So fast forward, I finished that suit of armor. It was good. They paid me, maybe $2,000 for like 2 full outfits in steel. I could have done it in aluminum, but it was my first time. Then I figure out hair. And then I learned about pitch. I learned about chisels. I used pitch for the first time in Florida, which is hot and melty.
Yeah.
And I call the Met and I get pictures. And this is before internet, really. This is like AOL, right? So I get pictures and I'm going to mail it off. So I call the museum because I want to get his address to send them the pictures. I'm like, I got to talk to Robert Carroll. He told me to, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, he died.
Oh no.
No. God, same thing happened with Giger years later. But
Oh,
yeah, that was the beginning.
that was
That was
beginning.
actually the beginning. Yeah.
I was gonna say you did definitely figure out hair finally, because that the lion armor, the Ugroli
Yeah.
definitely has hair on it, the lion's mane and things like that. I mean, that is just such an impressive piece of work. I mean, it stacks. You could probably put that in a museum next to something else, and people wouldn't know one was
I,
modern.
I would squee beyond belief. If that could happen, I
Mm.
would be so friggin' just like, oh my gosh. If there was like something like send it to Toby, you're right. I'm like, here.
Yeah.
And put it, we had a talk with Mac, and Mac brought me back to earth. And yes, it's a reenactment piece. There's, sometimes with things, if you make a period, you can't use it in the SCA.
Yeah.
Just can't. If you make it the right size, it's not legally padded. And I don't want to make giant things. I hate that proportion. I love, as real as you can get it. And the Ugroli piece, there's some things that are different shaped on it, but I think if you understand that, you get it, right? You get that, okay, these things are within parameters forgivable, but it's not a Burgonet. In fact, I have a copy of it here, a Burgonet type shaped thing,
Yeah.
This one was, no, don't fall. Okay. What happens is when I get a piece that I really like, I'll make a mold on it. So I actually have copies, back before I did special effects and all that. You had pictures, you had drawings, and you had memories, and now you can make a copy. You can, I have copies of a few helmets here on the floor, ready to show you guys. But this is the beginning. I haven't had a chance to paint it because I just got it a couple of weeks ago. But
And it is, yeah, it is a fantastic helmet. And the level of detail that you put into it on every piece of that armor, it would be.
right there.
I I think that there would be a huge value of doing an exhibit of modern armors, especially armors on your level and Mac's level and maybe Jeff Wasson's level, doing an exhibit of modern armors alongside a actual artifacts. That could be a really very interesting exhibit.
That's a fantasy that I've always had. I've got a couple of fantasies. One of them was when I was about to, I found out Giger liked my work,
Yeah.
and I went to visit one time, and he had just had a stroke and he was really depressed. And I was kind of like, oh, I'm just an artist visiting the Giger Museum. They're like, he's excited and he'd like to meet you, but he's had a stroke and he's not doing too well. And he loves the aluminum work. And he's just, and I'm just sitting there and I'm talking with my friend, with Nicholas, who was there, Nicholas Baptiste. And when we leave, I'm like, did I really hear that? And he's like, oh yes, it is true. I'm like, because, they're speaking English, speaking French, and I pick up things, because I can kind of understand French, kind of understand Italian. I speak Spanish fluently. So it was one of those, like, you have Spanglish. Well, this is like Europeanish, English, Spanish, Italian, all at the same time. And so I picked that up, and they were like, would you be interested in doing a show here at the Giger Museum? And I was like, no friggin' way, right? Because I'm like, how? I just literally came here just to see this. And the plan was to hopefully have him art direct my show, because he was very depressed and he really wanted to do something. And I was like, let's just do it, and I'm getting ready and we're getting ready. And I know you guys have probably seen that Nefertiti looking Giger piece that I've made that opens up.
Yes.
That was basically to go, I can do this, kind of like a teaser. And I get the phone call. It's weird because I'm one of the first people that found out that he died. He fell down some stairs and died.
Oh, no.
So that was one of those things that, kind of inspired me, and the dream I had for that was coffee book and all these ideas. And wow, this exhibit. And I want to do this crazy exhibit of armor, biomechanics stuff, costume design, riffing on that. And the other one has been always to have something with armor, to have, like, imagine like the night thing that they just did at the Met.
Yeah, the last night.
The last night. Something like that.
The new night. The new night.
Yes. But well, imagine, like, walking into the Musée de la Mer in Paris. That's where I had that dream, because I'm looking at all these pieces, and there's actual Negrolis, and there's, Otto Heinrich's armor, and there's all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, what if they just snuck one of my pieces? In fact, what I did is I took that helmet, where is it? The Ugroli helmet. I had it partially done. And I took it to the museum in the backpack. Somehow I got it in, because there was this family at the check, the bag check area where security does all the checks. There was this family, and they were like foreign, they're speaking different languages, and they're just like vociferous and crazy. And they had them all confused, and I just kind of snuck around them and snuck into the gallery with a backpack with the helmet inside the backpack. And inside the Musée de la Mer, I see this young guy, and I'm like, hey, do you speak English? He's like, oh yeah, I do. And I'm like, God, at the time I was 42, and I thought I was old then. So 10 years ago, wow. Oh my God, I'm 52. Sorry. Anyways, so I go to the guy, and I'm like, do you want to? Hey kid, look in the bag, right? And he's like, mon Dieu, and it's the helmet, right? And I go, before anybody sees, would you mind helping me? And I hold it up, and you take a picture. And I found one of the Negrolis, which it's not inspired by, but it's of the type, standing there. And I hold it up to the thing, and he takes pictures of it. And then I sneak it back in the bag, and then I took him out for food. As a thank you. He's a chainmail maker, a mail maker, and he was really into that. And we're chatting the little bit that I know about that. Took him out to eat, and he was just like holding the thing, and it wasn't even finished. It was just a naked lady on top. So I got it into a museum, and that's when I was thinking, God, wouldn't it be cool to have, the new armors? And I think Beth recommended doing a book, right? He said something about, I can't remember the title she gave it. She'll probably write it because she's brainy that way. But and she thought doing a book of the modern armor guys, masters. Yeah. And, like they have Negroli and his contemporaries doing something like that. Wow, the contemporaries. With armor.
That would sound amazing. I mean, I'm sure. I think we should try to make this happen. I think we should work on this and either try to make this book or make this exhibit happen.
Imagine how cool it would be,
It
because
would
yeah,
be.
and of course well curated and all that stuff. But I remember where she is. I thought I saw her write something.
She says, "I agree. We need to make this happen."
Um, and I remember even calling this back when I first was getting to know people, and I got to, write with Toby Capwell. And I'm like, are there armors that we have never seen that would blow our minds that are considered fantasy?
Mm.
And he wrote, I remember, paraphrasing, he was kind of like, you have no idea. And I said, what about doing a book? And I told him about this. And he was like, you're going to write a book? I'm like, I'm just an artist, man. Who am I? I have a bunch of letters behind my name. You do. And he's like, I got too much to do.
Yeah, it sounds like.
So,
But yeah, I'm. We'll talk about this at another time. But I'd like to help you make this happen because I think this could be an amazing exhibit, and I'm sure there someone somewhere would also agree with that. And I
it'd be
think
cool if one idea that I had at one point was, when Kickstarter and all that stuff started happening, was to find a way to get, because I'm like, wait, people will pay me to build something,
yeah,
you know, and I could write a book, or I could do a book, or a coffee table book is my brain. I could do a coffee table book on the story of this kind of armor, and then show my piece progressing, and
yeah.
people will pay me for that, and then I could sell it, or something. That could be fun,
So
because it takes a lot.
let's talk about that ukulele for a couple of minutes here. What
Yeah,
I mean, like I said, that's such a daunting project. It must. I mean, how did you approach that?
like this.
Yeah,
Look, somebody once asked me, how do you approach building this? And I grabbed the hammer and the piece like this, and he was like, you jerk. Uh, the guy called me, and he's like, hey, would you be interested in doing a suit of armor? And I'm like, sure, because I get that a lot. Oh my
yeah,
God, so much. Where, again, side story, somebody wanted me to build, the dolphin helmet at the Musée de l'Armée.
hmm
There's a dolphin helmet that's really with scales all over it. It's actually like tiny. He shows me pictures of this, and he's all like, can you build this? And it's got to be just like this. And I mean, it's total OCD kind of information. I mean, I'm like, wow, this guy's serious. I mean, he's done his homework. Um, and he's like, how much is it going to cost? And I'm like, this is like maybe the year 2000. And I was, before I even really started doing it. And he's like, how much? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe 5,000, which no way
yeah.
nowadays. And he's like, how do you justify your prices by? He goes off and he goes, I've got $500. I was like, yeah. So I'm used to that. I'm used to that kind of thing.
I'm going to bring something up quick while you're talking about it because Beth
Yeah,
just started it.
you know, yeah, that's a good album. Anyways, so this guy, he's calling me and he goes, I'd like you to build me a suit of armor. And I go, well, what kind? I always give him this, give me some ideas, give me reference, give me the information, tell me your story, because I also like to put the story. And I'll explain, this suit has a story to it.
Hmm.
Because I love the thing in armor that they would put the coat of arms, they would put, something that means a lot to the person would be part of the decoration of the suit. What happened is he's calling me, he tells me he's got two ideas. He'd like something Charles V or something like the palmette garniture, or what do you call it, the KD harness, sorry. And he's like, how much? And it's like, it's going to be a lot. And he goes, a lot to you or a lot to me? And I'm like, oh, are you serious then? He's like, well, I'm in Spain standing in front of, I'm calling you from the museum, from the Armeria Real, standing in front of, Carlos Quinto's or Charles V's suit of armor. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he starts sending me pictures that he took in secret because you're not supposed to take pictures. And he basically, I did those drawings with a red pencil because I always draw in red, and I did those drawings, and I was like, wow, and I gave him the price, which I didn't charge enough, but I charged enough. It's like I didn't charge enough, but I did. It was wonderful to work on that suit because to get paid on something enough that you can be like, I got to do this. Oh, but I got to get it done. Wait, I'm getting paid to take the time to do this. So I'm going to take the time and learn a new thing and do the research and maybe take a few days off to just breathe and then come at it fresh again. At the time it afforded me being able to go to Paris. I was dating a girl in Paris anyways, but this project afforded me to go to Paris and look at the real Negroles and look at, just even the architecture. That is actually Monica Bellucci's body. Uh, which is what I used. So anyways, the guy comes to me and he's like, yeah, my wife said no. And I'm like, dude, totally fair. I get it's a lot of money. And he's like, no, I didn't say no to the suit. She says no to the design because unless it has breasts, she doesn't want to see it. So that's why I did the woman on top. The woman represents his wife. And luckily, she'd probably be flattered that I used Monica Bellucci as her body, but the body represents the woman represents,
I can see that you did figure out hair. Look at that.
Oh my gosh, that's tiny too. That's like, and there was a couple of times that I had to like pull back because I started getting the horror vacui, the fear of empty spaces, and I'm like, no, there has to be empty spaces. Then I started looking at Bernini, and Bernini's hair, they're just locks. They're not individual hairs. So when I started doing the shoulders and other pieces, I didn't do as many lines, and I realized, wow, that's great. So she approved of that design, and his device, his coat of arms is a wyvern. I can't remember everything. There's a wyvern, there's a star, there's a couple of things. He wanted this angel thing. Plus, his normal persona is Vikingish, right? Vikingish. So he's got a Valkyrie, right? And the eagle, the dragons, when you get to those, if you look at them closely, they have the curly claws of the ravens, right? Are their claws.
Oh.
The dragon actually, or the wyvern actually has a kind of beaky face. And I did that on purpose, right? Because I wanted to tie in the two ravens. So the two wyverns are actually two ravens. The woman on top is a heroic Valkyrie, holding the blades to the heads of the there it is down at the bottom, holding the blades to the head of the that's the picture.
That's the picture.
Yeah, that's when we stuck it into the museum. I was so chuffed, I believe the word is, when I got to do that. That's one of the great memories I have.
Yeah, and there's the wyverns.
Yeah, so there'll be better pictures, but you'll see the claw is this weird kind of curly claw, and I did that on purpose. And the head, kind of a little beaky, and I wanted that to, in our language for him, to represent the two ravens, the Valkyrie. There's on the back plate you'll get to at some point. There's what is it? Victory and Fame, I believe, weeping over the tombs of the fallen. Right, because I was like, oh, we got to make this like you're like the, this is like the armor of, who would wear this, right?
What is this amazing detail?
That is the face of Saint Bartholomew. Oh. And I found out it's not really the patron saint of surgeons, I don't believe, but for some reason the owner of this is a surgeon, and I just thought flayed skin, right? I can't remember why that came up, but flayed skin. So I did the face of Saint Bartholomew, which became kind of a motif on the suit. Oh, I got a copy of that face as well. Finished face.
The mustache is probably is the best part.
Oh my god, I was loving the mustache. That's where I think that's where I finally figured hair out. And I got these little tiny wrinkles, which a lot of people don't notice, but they're there. And I got them only on one side, because those little tiny wrinkles, once it's finished, that's all hammer finished. I never hit it with I think I may have just done a little by hand, but none of this suit was sanded at any point. This is all rough from the hammer. This suit was also therapy.
I say the mustache actually also works as a lock, isn't that correct? It locks the face.
It's a redundancy. Yeah, it's a redundancy. You've got this one, and that, because the face goes in, then you close this, then you lock the chin, and then the mustaches go click and just bolsters it all down together. It's like a cinch. And they click over the rope There's a little
But
clicky.
that's a fantastic just detail of working it into the mustache, and you could have just put hooks or something, but you didn't.
I
You
couldn't do that. No.
No, well, you couldn't do that, but somebody else probably would have
Yeah.
just done hooks.
But even if I did a hook, I probably would have filed the hook and decorated it. And
Yeah.
there's a time and a place to make a brute suit, and there's a time when you just have to make it so decadent, so over the top. And this afforded me to be able to take the time to do that.
Right. Look at the
Now,
size of that. That's a Sharpie.
yes, yes. Um,
It's amazing.
I went nuts on this suit, and literally went nuts because I this suit saved my life. I had I guess we can call it a nervous breakdown due to the girl in Paris. Emotional things happened, and I just popped. And the only thing I remember, we had a discussion about this. The only thing I remember from 2012 through about the beginning of 2016 is this and bits and pieces. I've lost 3 years of my life mentally, but this suit, it was wonderful to be able to lose myself in a piece. This is an experiment I did. I etched and then I chased, and it really worked nicely. Um, I would probably do it again. It really worked nice. I etched the designs in because I needed that symmetry, um, and then I came back in with chisels. Now this whole suit it's not finished yet.
Oh, really?
This is getting what do you say in English? Damascene. The owner actually went to Toledo and learned from some masters how to do Damascene. And he's already got the neck piece done, and the whole suit. I don't know how long it's going to take, but he's got it there.
Wow.
He actually took the helmet when I finished it, because it was the first piece I did was the helmet and the shield, and he took it to Toledo to show them the scope of what they were going to do, and they lost it. Apparently, they had to like take appointments because the whole town neighborhood wanted to come in and see that helmet.
Um, yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna say Derek just said in the chat he's not sure what the Damascene means, and somebody the gold inlay. So they'll be doing gold inlay over.
yeah. The Damascene basically, it's not inlay. It's like an overlay kind of thing. You score the surface of the metal, like think about it as Velcro, and then you use sheets of really thin gold, not like foil. It's not like gold leaf, and then you kind of hammer it into that, and all those little things grab the decoration, and it becomes part of the piece. There's many different ways of doing it, but I know that's how he's doing this one. Again, Bartholomew being held by the two wyverns. That's like, oh, I want a T-shirt like that.
Yeah, that could be like a great metal cover, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh my
Um,
gosh. I can't remember. Oh, I feel horrible. The lady that's doing all the printed things, and I think she does the metal fingers. She tried getting a hold of me. I feel bad because I haven't responded. Um, anyways, she does a lot of armor kind of inspired prints and things like that.
so that's the breastplate with it,
That's the rest of it.
and then
Yeah,
on the back
there it
plate.
is. So you see the design there.
Yep.
And he wanted two angels, because he also, his nickname for his wife is my angel. So that's a theme that's going through this. Here's a story that is really touching, because I had no idea this was happening. So I do the two angels, who are all victory and the fame. And I was pretty proud, because look, I did feather, I did fabric, I did metal, I did stone, and the weight of skin, the weight of the breast, to be quite honest, and transparency. You could see on one of the breasts, you could see it through the fabric.
Yeah.
And it just happened. I got it to work. Well, I finished this, and then I find out, and I didn't find out until we did a presentation together, where he was talking about the armor and his process, and I was talking about how I made it. And I almost started crying, but I found out, well, his wife had had a tumor in her breast and had to have a mastectomy, and his mother got breast cancer and passed. Long story short, and I had no idea. And when and I'm standing there, he's telling the story, and I've got my eyes are welling up, because I'm like, wow. I mean, those angels basically also now represent his mother and his wife, and the weeping over the tomb, which I had no idea. It just came to me.
And then this
Oh,
the detail of the hair, the
That was
fur, and this is alive. I mean, this is like a living sculpture that he wears on his shoulder.
I want
It's
one so bad.
we all do now.
I think this is where I don't want to say master, but this is where, and that picture is funny because that was a throwaway picture. And then I was about to toss it and I looked at it again and enlarged it. And I was like, oh, that's it. That picture to me is heaven. Um, that I think is where I finally figured out to get the weight, because
Mm.
there's something about sculpture and things that a lot of even repose artists, they'll just draw a line. But come on, everything has gravity, you know? And again, I was a sculptor before I was an armor. I'm actually a better sculptor than I am armor, but armor or metalworker, but that's where I got my, my niche. Um, so
So
being able to capture that with chisels, the eyes, the furrow on the eyes. And I did that after I went to Paris and I got to see the real ones. That's really, there's a magic to that, which I really enjoy exploring.
I love how you put so much detail on the gorget, and you don't even see it. When the breastplate's over it, you don't even see it until it comes off, and
It's
it's
like I heard a lady once, in a costume thing that we worked on. She's like, some women will wear the most beautiful lingerie under their business suits just to know that they're wearing it.
hmm,
And see sometimes some of those details, the decadence of finishing a piece, and this is also what we did in fashion. The what you see is nice, but a really nice suit. Like I have a Xenia suit, which is amazing. It's like wearing pajamas. This thing is like, I wear it once in a while to go out, and I swear I can just go to sleep in the thing because it is so comfortable. But the internal is just as beautiful as the external, and that is something that really feeds me. I don't just turn an edge. The edge has to be turned and you know rolled. I've seen some people just do this because that's all you see. You got to roll it around,
yeah.
if that is, of course, your zen. And that piece, I also did it. The little lion piece that goes in the front comes off, right? It got two. This whole thing has turn pins and has, I think the top of the armor only has leather on the two straps here and here for the pauldrons. Otherwise, it is completely metal articulate. Oh, and sorry, the straps in the gorget, whatever. You know what I mean. Otherwise, it's completely metal. Um, the straps, metal. They're hinged straps. It's because it's one of those things. I love. I know they did this a lot on Lord of the Rings, the true Lord of the Rings, where I think Theoden's armor, the actor's the only one that ever saw it. The inside was lined and beautiful and all this, and he said it made his acting come through.
Hmm.
Years ago when I was 21, I did a play because I fancied myself an actor, and they gave me this painted sweater, you know, and I'm like, "Ugh." And this is before riveted thin mail that we have now, right? This is like 91. And I went and I found a friend who had a full-on gigantic, heavy as hell, like I swear it was like 14 gauge links or something. It was so heavy. And I used that to act. And I became that character, you know. There's something about it. And I think even for armor, it's like everything I do, I try to finish it in a way that has internal as well as external mojo. I actually learned to make springs so I can do the breastplate actually has on the dragon, the gussets here actually spring loaded.
Really?
I had no idea. I figured it out. I didn't want to just do thick leather, so it pops
Yeah.
out. No, my breastplate's got straps, it just pops out. But this one, I wanted it to just have these, and they're beautiful. They're these S-curved ones, and they grab onto the side of the plate and they push it out with a little fork.
Wow. So this isn't just a feat of artwork and the representation. This is also like a feat of engineering in itself here. Trying to figure some stuff like that. And they're talking about um, Deaton's armor on there and how it made him, in the chat about how it made him feel like a king. And when I read, historical records or things that talk about things having princely or kingly armor. This suit here is what I would imagine something like that would look like. This is truly a princely and kingly suit of armor that you've made, and you're in the process of making, because, like you said, it's not finished.
Well, my part's finished.
Oh, your part's finished. He's doing the rest now.
Yeah.
That is just it. That piece of work is fantastic, and thank you for letting me share that. And thank you, Beth, for sending me the link for that. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna open this up to the group, because I'm sure people have questions that they'd love to ask you. So if you have questions for Ugo, please go ahead.
When I start watching,
can I ask one in a minute? I've got several I want to ask you, and it's easier than typing it.
Sure.
Hi, is that okay?
Yeah, no, it's fine. Please do.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, you might be here sometime because I've got just my brain is still. Hello, by the way. Hi. Yeah, your work's amazing. Blows my mind. Okay, so as a fellow smith and somebody that loves repousse, do you find that you work mainly from the back of the piece, and then chase the front afterwards, or do you do it mainly from the front, or is it just like piece dependent?
It's piece dependent, but mostly with armor. I will do. My brain just went. I will do from the back. I'll push it out. Volumes. I'll do the volumes from the back.
Okay.
And then once I get the volumes, I work it back in. And the only time I really work the back again is to push things out, because it always kind of does this thing.
Yeah.
So I'll usually just work on the back if I need to push something back out, or if there's something that requires it. But mostly what I do is I always call it, I poof it out. Like if I have to make a helmet, I'll go poof, like it's retaining. I always say this, like it's retaining water. I just give it a little bit, because real repousse, I used to think was really, like many times when we see Maximilian fluting, we think that it's, or Gothic fluting, we think it's like, and in fact, it's beveled. I did this helmet's from a movie. I don't know if you could tell, but those are bevels. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
In the past, I would have been like, it has to be, and these are so faint that you can hardly tell. And the thing is, with repousse, unless you're doing something sculptural, like this is one I did for Will Smith, there are times that you need it to be sculptural. You need it to stick out, like like this one. I did all this as a huge, and you'll see in the pictures, as a huge bun, right? But everything else, and when you see the real thing, you're surprised. I was surprised with how incredibly this guy's special, how incredibly shallow they are.
Yeah.
And if you look at a coin, and this is something I can't remember who told me this. If you look at a coin, you see a coin and you see that face or that design stick out, but really look at it and grab a little needle and try to feel how shallow it really is. And what it is you're tricking the eye. So a lot of what I do from the outside is chasing. And at the very end, you take a nice sharp chisel, but not a cutting chisel, but a nice sharp one. And when you make your bed and you have the sheet over the pillows and you kind of tuck under the pillow to get that.
No, I don't make my bed. I'm too busy. I just want to go to the workshop. I don't do domestic things.
You have people for that. You have people for that. Anyways,
behind me.
when you tuck things in, you'll understand when you see it. But when you tuck in a pillow,
I know what you mean.
Tuck in something, you get that edge, and you just it was Valentin Yotkov. He told me that, and you use that chisel to just give it a little deck, and it tricks the eye and it catches the light. And that is the biggest mystery of how to make something look so sharp. You're not cutting, you're tucking it under, but it's just enough that the light catches.
You'll probably get like questions from me on Facebook and stuff.
Oh no.
The other question. Pardon?
What's your name?
Anna.
Anna? Okay, well, I'll look up.
Yeah.
I see Anna.
Yeah, Anna Rennie, or Steel. Look for Steel Maiden and you'll find me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember you. Okay, cool.
Amazing. That's made my day. Like I've arrived. Okay, so the other question, if I get myself calmed down now, the other question is, so what kind of gauge, is there an average sort of gauge of steel that you're working in, or I suppose piece dependent again?
Well, piece dependent, because I do, for movie stuff, I use aluminum, and I just use like 14 to 16 gauge aluminum.
Yeah.
For jewelry, I'll do like silver, I'll do 22 to 24 gauge. For armor, oh my gosh, this one was 14 gauge.
Okay.
With the scorpions and stuff. This is the second Reposade helmet I did.
Yeah.
It was heavy. I just got it back and I fixed it up and delivered it, but it'll last forever. For Reposade, I feel comfortable with armor doing 16 gauge, especially if it's going to be heat treated or if it's a finer, carbon. There's one that's ductile. I haven't quite gotten there because what I do is I cheat. Is I'll do it in mild and then I send it off to get case hardened, and and they have a specific, and I get them to rock well, and I feel comfortable because it's really hard to chase carbon steel, not really hard, but it's harder, and but 16 to 14 gauge, 14 if you really want to be, torture yourself. I also have this, I don't know if you can see the muscles, I got this monster muscle here, which is a little atrophied right now, but it just gets huge because I'm just like
and one last question and then I'll let anybody else talk. Is do you use oxypropane or oxyacetylene just to heat your steel?
Right now I'm using oxyacetylene. I'd like to switch. I just haven't because it's what I use. I use oxyacetylene with a big rosebud. I can't remember the number, but it's a big one. Also, pitch is good for some things.
Which pitch do you use? Sorry,
I get one from St. Charleston because he's
is it red or black? Is it black?
It's a red one. It's a red one. It's German red, I believe. But
we use black, which is really nice actually.
Is it the black tar type stuff?
No, there's it's pine, I think now. We have got some of the old really smelly stuff, which is probably the nicest, I think, but you can't get hold of that anymore.
I can't. I love the smell of the natural one. Now, what happens is that depending on the weather where you are, there's a life to the pitch where you have a window. You'll heat it up, and this is what sucked on. That's what I learned on the Roman helmet. I was getting so frustrated because it would take me 2 hours to set it up. Then I'd have to go for coffee and relax or work on something else. Then I had a window of literally like 45 minutes to work before it would shatter because it was cold. So
that's interesting.
Because, I do special effects and did special effects, and I have clay and I'm sculpting. I had a vat of Chavant clay, which is an oil-based non-sulfuric clay that they use. It's called Chavant NSP, non-sulfuric polymer.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah. And if you get the hard type, is the best one for this because it comes soft, medium, and hard. And that stuff you can cut, And that, when you have a piece of armor, it'll, just like pitch, it'll hold the shape, but it doesn't shatter. It'll separate.
That's interesting.
It'll separate, but it won't shatter. So when you're working it and, ding, 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 and all of a sudden you're like, dunk, and you're like, you have to empty it out and redo it. No, this one, you just turn it upside down, heat it with that's why I was thinking rosebud. You heat it with a soft rosebud or however you like to heat. It'll melt in, you put a little weight on it, you'll see it squirt out the sides, leave it alone for a little bit, and now it's reset. And that's how I do. And I prefer to do that for armor for this kind of stuff.
That's amazing.
I tend to use a pitch for jewelry.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you.
And Chavant is Chavant.
Right. I'll look that up straight away. And when hopefully you come to the UK again soon.
Yeah. Where are you about?
I'm in Cornwall, and I live 20 minutes from Terry English.
Oh, Terry! If you see him, kick him.
Cornwall.
Tell me he doesn't come anymore.
No, he does. He does. He actually. I was going to say that earlier. He told me to say hi to you. He's sorry. Folks don't know this, but I had been talking with Terry and trying to get him to do a talk for us. And just the timing and stuff didn't really work out because he's doing another show right now. But he did say hello to you, Hugo. So
to tell him I said Terry who? Oh, I'd love to see him again. He made me.
Parker wants to know how you do acanthus leaves.
Thank you, by the way. That's amazing.
Yeah, no problem. Tell that guy to how I do acanthus leaves. Depends what kind it is, but really it's you draw it. The way you do any chasing or any repose is you draw it either on the piece. I tend to draw it straight on. I'll do a preparatory drawing. But mostly what I'll do is draw it straight on the piece just because I'm an artist and I just draw. With acanthus, I would probably, again, draw it on, and then I come back with a chisel and then cry because for some reason I think acanthus is my new hair. And I did a thing in 2012 where they tried to get me to acanthus, and I still have the piece. I gotta send it to Wade. That I started there, and there was this sorry piece of acanthus. And then I did an acanthus with this guy called Aquafresca. I did an acanthus that looked like kale. So it's like, I think it's just a mental hurdle of the shapes. And I think because I'm a 3D thinker and there's so many varieties of it, I really have a hard time just getting it. So every time I see an acanthus, including when I went to Rome, I'm walking around and I'm like, where's this acanthus? I want to see the actual acanthus. And I was on a tour, like with my first time. So I usually do tours the first time. And the lady's like, you see, because I was at the forum and I'm going, why don't they just clean this place up? It's full of weeds. It's just, what? This is the forum. They should like have people like at Disneyland cleaning the place up. And she's like, oh, all these weeds you see around, that's acanthus. And I grabbed a piece and I'm looking at it. It looked like weeds.
Evan wants to know, do you think there's any similarity in the methodology in which Renaissance and Reformation armors did hair, like you do, and ancient Roman cavalry helmets with hair embossed into the metal?
Well, I've seen a lot of there's a few different types. And some Roman stuff just looks like lines, very expressionistic, has its place and its beauty. There's definitely a way you can tell, like just like with sculpture, you see Michelangelo, you see 14th century, you see Bernini, you see, oh my God, the 17th century stuff, which is just crazy. The hair all looks different. And I think it is just like with fashion, probably also goes with the fashion of the time and the art of the time, because I actually learned more from looking at sculptures about hair than actually looking at armor. When I started looking at Bernini stuff, which is, of course, more 17th century or whatever century he was, sorry. Again, also, I'm just an artist. I'm not a historian.
It's okay. It's okay.
Show me the picture.
I'll send you the written test later.
Yeah, you give me the designations. I'm like, oh, the flippy armor. Okay, that one. So there's definitely, just like with clothing styles, I have noticed that there are styles of hair, right? Like what identifies, if you see a vambrace without context, many of us can see it's a 14th century or it's a 17th century or it's a 16th century. There's tells that give you that, oh, that's this, just from a remnant. Hair has the same thing. So there are times that I have to pull back on the hair because it starts coming out a little too sculptural. I'm like, no, that's way late period. I need to, and there's times that I'm almost embarrassed to do something simple because I'm afraid people aren't going to get it and they're going to be like, oh, his hair's gone way down. It's like, oh, he used to be good at hair.
He's losing his hair.
This is, he's reached his zenith. No, this is in context for this. I did a long time ago when I first, back during the Armor Archive days. I remember, man, I hated it because I felt like, I show up and I'm just like, hello, here I am, love me. And I'm doing it's fantasy armor, it's movie armor, it's artistic armor. And I had, how people are, armchair intellectual, armchair armor is just going nuts that it's not period, it's not made like such and such number from such and such. It's like, I never said I was a period armor. I'm just trying to learn this and I'm enjoying this. Well, one day I was like, you bastards. And I made, honestly, to me, forgive me, one of the best bassinets out there, right? Because I copied Mac and I tried to copy Mac. It's that really beautiful one that Brian Price has now.
Yep.
With the high little thing back here. And I basically did my version of that with a hound skull and all that stuff. And I put it up on the Armor Archive and I was like, nothing. It was ignored. It was like, oh, nice helmet. I'm like, so I finally do something to make you guys shut up. And that was, I think, the last time I did something like historical. But yeah, it's Sorry, I went on a tangent. What were you talking about?
No,
Remember,
it's fine. It's fine. You're not the only person. You're not the only person to bring up the armor archive in talks today. So
oh, I'm 52, and I'm all I need are my Werthers because
yeah.
I'm starting to tell stories. I gotta get me back.
Well, we have time for one last question. This is the most important question you're going to be asked today.
Oh, here it comes.
What is your favorite armor? You go, Serrano.
Current or historical?
What is your favorite? What doesn't matter what.
Obviously Negroli or the Negroli family. But I believe, oh God, as far as just like really, just historical period stuff, probably Helmschmidt. I mean, Maximilian's, is he the one? See,
Yes.
I told you.
Yes, yeah. Beth is shaking your head. Yes.
Beth, help me.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy you brought your personal assistant to the conference.
I don't know if you know the story. We used to work together. Well, did we ever actually work together?
Yes,
We worked
Gilman.
at the same company. Yeah, we worked at the same company. And I moved up here and she happened to move up here. And
That's
she was
fantastic.
like the brains of the place. And to me, I'm like, if I ever have an empire, she's running it. Because she will keep me on track. And I'll be like, I'm gonna make pretty things and go make love to beautiful women across the. She'll be like, no, you gotta work. And if I need anything, she's got it. Like I'll be like, I wonder where I can find this. It's there, it's amazing. Beth is my brain.
Well, Ugo Serrano, artist, sculptor, armor, repoussé master. Thank you so much for being here today. It was fantastic to talk to you and to learn about how you went into projects and what inspires you. So I just can't thank you enough for being part of this.
Oh, cool. No, it's awesome. I've never done one of these, so it's fun. And, I hope I didn't go off too much on my old man tangent.
It was fantastic.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Next time, set 2 hours aside.
Okay. So, folks, we're going to take a half-an-hour break, and then we'll be back with Wade Allen to talk about how to start a collection. So I need to go